The kingdom of Ethelgard stretched out in golden silence, but Anne focused only on the patch of dirt near the garden wall. A fledgling had tumbled from the canopy, its wings shivering against the dry earth. She knelt, cupping her palms around the small, frantic heartbeat until she felt it steady. With slow, deliberate movements, she reached up and tucked the bird deep into the safety of the nest. From the balcony above, the king watched. He did not look at the garden. His fingers traced the jagged lines of a map spread across his stone desk, marking borders and mountain passes. He turned as Anne entered the hall, her hands still stained with soil. "Anne," he said, the name cut through the quiet, echoing off the high, cold walls. He tapped the parchment beneath his palm. "You will lead these people one day. You know how to tend to the small and the broken, but have you walked the paths they tread every dawn? Have you felt the weight of the work that keeps this land alive?" He looked at her, waiting. The garden's warmth felt a world away. The heavy iron gates of the castle swung shut, locking behind her with a final, hollow thud, and stepped onto the rutted dirt road leading toward Oakhaven. There was no fanfare, no servants, and no comfort. By the second day, her muscles burned with a fire she had never known. She hauled oak buckets filled with water from the deep well, the rope biting into her palms with every rhythmic pull. The weight was relentless. She spent her afternoons bent double in the vegetable patches, her spine aching as she cleared rows of stubborn weeds. The sun beat down, turning the soil into a dry, crusty powder that clung to her skin. Her hands, once soft and idle, cracked and calloused. She worked until her joints throbbed and the horizon blurred into a haze of exhaustion. Every bucket lifted and every row turned was a lesson in endurance. She watched the other villagers move with a grim, practiced efficiency, their bodies hardened by years of this same repetitive struggle. She did not stop. She did not ask for rest. She simply gripped the handles, braced her feet in the dirt, and continued the task. The heat shimmered off the village path as Anne spotted an elderly woman straining against a massive, tangled bundle of firewood. The woman's knees buckled under the uneven weight, her breath coming in sharp, labored gasps, and set her own basket aside and crossed the distance in 3 strides. She did not ask for permission. She simply braced her shoulder against the wood and hoisted the entire burden onto her back. The cedar was rough, digging into her muscles, but she carried it to the threshold of a leaning, dust-choked shack. Inside, the air smelled of damp earth and wood smoke. The woman gestured to a low wooden stool, then produced a small, chipped bowl filled with thin, graying porridge. She divided it with a trembling spoon, pushing the larger portion toward Anne. "I have little," the woman whispered, her eyes fixed on the steam rising from the clay. "But my heart remains full when I share." Anne took the bowl, the heat radiating into her palms. She looked at the woman's weathered face, then down at the meager portion of food. She wiped the dust from her forehead, lifted the spoon, and ate. In the quiet of the shack, the distance between the palace and this floor vanished. The chasm was a jagged scar through the heart of the village. Villagers stood at the edge, staring across the gap, forced to walk miles to reach the other side, and walked to the center of the path, her gaze locking onto the timber scattered near the ridge. She gripped a heavy wooden plank, the rough grain digging into her palms. She shouted to the men working in the nearby fields, waving them over with a sharp, commanding gesture. They hesitated, then dropped their tools and converged, and moved to the center of the breach, signaling the rhythm. They hauled the timber into place, their muscles straining against the weight. She grabbed a heavy iron spike, placed it against the beam, and drove it into the earth with a rhythmic, thunderous strike. "If we lift together, this bridge will hold," she called out over the metallic ringing of hammers. The rhythm caught. The villagers swung in unison, their faces slick with sweat, their focus narrowed to the wood and the stone. As the final beam locked, Anne stood back, her chest heaving. The structure held firm. A cheer erupted from the line, echoing across the ravine as the first villager stepped across the span, the wood solid beneath their feet. 1 month later, the castle gates groaned open for Anne. She walked into the throne room, her skin bronzed by the sun and her hands calloused from the soil of Oakhaven. The king watched her approach, his gaze lingering on the steady, grounded way she moved. He gestured to the map on his table. "What did you learn out there?" he asked, and knelt on the cold stone, her posture firm. "A crown is not just gold," she replied. "It is the responsibility to listen and to serve." The king nodded,
a quiet smile tracing his lips. Years passed, and the throne became a place of work rather than a pedestal of power.
Anne spent her mornings in the marketplace. Her boots dusty from the roads, she insisted on repairing herself. She directed the construction of schools and listened to the grievances of every citizen who approached her. She did not rule from the height of the palace, but from the center of the village square.
Her legacy was not recorded in the jewels of her crown, but in the bridges that stood,
the roads that stayed clear, and the people who knew their leader as one of their own. Leadership was defined by the depth of her service, and the kingdom flourished in the strength of that bond.